I was going to go sit with Paul Westphal, which I did every game. I would sit courtside with him, which he always did his in a different way, his scrum. Now it's like a press conference. Then it was like he would sit down courtside and everyone would just kind of huddle around him and he'd hold a press conference. So I went to go get my standard every single game conversation with Paul, and Bill Walton and Jim Gray come scurrying in and like sit on both sides of him, and I'm like, okay. So I kind of take a step back, and then a couple of minutes later, Devin Blankenship, former media relations staff, came over. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing? How come you're not over talking to Paul?" I'm like, "Well, I didn't know. It's like Jim Gray and you know Bill Walton just showed up, and you can't get a word in edgewise with those guys. I mean, basically that becomes a 15-minute Bill Walton press conference, not anything about Paul Westphal. There wasn't even a question asked, I don't think. It's just Bill Walton talking for 15 minutes. So the media relations guys were like, no, 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 man. They don't have any right to be there any more than you do. Just go in there. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I go over, I take my mic out. And at that point, I think Jim Gray had not sat down. He was kind of standing there, and Bill Walton was sitting there next to Paul. And so I pulled my mic out, and I'm waiting for my turn to ask a question, which is never going to come because that's the way it goes. And Bill Walton out of nowhere goes, "Excuse me." And I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "Can you shut that thing off?" And he's talking about my mic. And I'm like, okay. And then he's like, "Actually, can you just go? Can you leave us? We're talking about some top secret stuff for television and radio." And I'm like, "Okay, what? All right, this is weird. This has never happened, and it was rude." And so I stood up and I walk away. And then Darren May, the media relations head of media relations, comes over. He's like, "What just happened over there?" I'm like, "Hey, Bill Walton just kicked me out." He's like, "He did what?" And I'm like, "He just kicked me out."